So you're thinking about moving to Portugal because you've seen headlines like these. But is Portugal really as good as the media and a lot of people online make it out to be, or is it all just too good to be true? Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Kylie, an American living in Portugal since 2022. I originally entered Portugal on a D7 visa. If you're watching this, it's probably because you're either considering moving to Portugal or are in the process of doing so. And while Portugal really has exploded in popularity over the past couple of years, is the idea that you can easily move to Southern Europe, take advantage of the slow European lifestyle, and save a ton of money in the process really just a fallacy? To answer that question in today's video, I'm sharing what the media doesn't share about the reality of moving to Portugal, especially as an American. Many of the points I'm going to make today, I was either only vaguely aware of before I moved here or hadn't fully grasped, probably because I was so infatuated with all of the perks of moving to Portugal. If you are thinking about moving to Portugal from the United States or elsewhere, then I highly suggest watching this video because it'll give you a clearer picture of the reality of living in this country, and it'll give you a much better idea of whether or not this country is going to be a good fit for you. My goal is not to scare you away from Portugal because I currently live here and I'm really happy with my decision for the moment, but to give you a more informed and full picture of the reality of living here. Now, to put things into perspective, I just want to say that I meet so many people on a regular basis that see Portugal and moving here as an opportunity to escape from the everyday problems of life. While you might be able to overcome challenges like cost of living, let's say you're from the United States, you can certainly come to Portugal and live a much more affordable lifestyle. However, that doesn't mean that you're not going to run into a whole other set of issues. But that said, you really have to come here with the mindset of you're not getting rid of your problems, you're just exchanging them for a set of new ones. Portugal is not an oasis, and it comes with its own set of challenges that you're likely going to have to face when moving here. All right, now let's move on to the reason you probably came here, and that's to talk about the negatives, the things that the mainstream media misses about living in Portugal that are generally seen as negative. The first and most prominent point that most foreigners do not consider when moving to Portugal is that the lifestyle here is very, very slow. You might be thinking to myself, well, that's why I want to move to Portugal, to take advantage of that slow European lifestyle. And yes, you want it to be slow when it comes to taking time to stop and smell the roses every day, to have more downtime with your family, your kids, your friends. And yes, that's great, but the slow lifestyle isn't isolated to those areas of life. It applies to everything, including the areas of your life that you would usually want a little bit more urgency. Now, for example, you might want a little bit more urgency when it comes to getting your roof fixed, to getting government documents approved, to getting Wi-Fi in your apartment. But unfortunately, again, the slow lifestyle applies to everything. You don't get to pick and choose where the slow lifestyle applies to. To give you an example, I meet so many people who move to Portugal and it takes weeks for them to get water, electricity, gas, Wi-Fi in their apartment because things just move at a slower pace here. If you're the kind of person who tends to be pretty impatient or type A, just understand that this is something that you're likely going to confront when moving here, and you have to decide if you're willing to stretch yourself because things will get slow here in areas that you do not want it to. All right, let's move on to the second point. And this one kind of ties in with the first one, and that is Portugal is what many would consider to be a highly bureaucratic country, which means that there are policies for the policies and departments for the departments. And what that does, it really slows down the flow of information from the bureaucracy to the people. And the slower the information moves, the more obscure it becomes. If you're in the process of getting a visa to come live in Portugal, you already know what I mean. The government will put out a very general set of guidelines on what it takes to get a visa, but there are no specifics and things will change at the drop of the hat, making the process of getting a visa extremely stressful and complex. To give you another example of how this has impacted my life, it took me about 3 months to get a debit card for the checking account here I opened because people at the bank didn't understand how to get me the PIN number. Then they didn't realize that I was actually eligible for a temporary debit card. And then the debit card process got slowed down by other things that I don't even know. That's something that you have to consider, is that there is a lot of uncertainty sometimes when it comes to information regarding processes that you want clarity on. Moreover, if you're planning on moving to Portugal, you're going to have to deal with uncertainty at sometimes, and uncertainty in things that you really don't want to be dealing with it with, but it's just something about living here that you're going to have to put up with. All right, third, the housing market in Portugal, particularly Lisbon, for rentals is extremely competitive. And this might come as a shock to some people who see in the media or watch online Americans moving to Lisbon and getting 1-bedroom apartments for €750 in the most beautiful location. And while those places might exist, they're few and far between, and the odds that you're going to get one are very, very slim. With that said, when you're moving here, you're likely going to have to make certain concessions if you want a rental. What most people end up having to do is either make a concession on their budget or location. They might have to pay a little bit more to get the apartment in the location that they want, or they're going to have to sacrifice the location in order to pay a little bit less. So what you see online of people getting the most beautiful apartments for very little money, odds are they were either one of the very lucky ones, or the apartment isn't as good a shape as they want to admit. Hi everyone, Editing Kylie here. I just wanted to say that I do have a business that helps foreigners seeking residency in Portugal find apartments to rent. If you are struggling to find a rental or have no idea where to start, you can check out my website, casaazulpt.com, for more information, and I can help you get the rental you need to secure your residency here. Fourth, houses in Portugal are built differently than they are in other countries, including the United States. And when I say differently, I'm not saying better or worse, I'm just saying differently. Because of the way most homes are built here in Portugal, many of them tend to trap cold air inside. So what I mean by that is it could be winter time and the temperature inside your home will actually be colder than what it is outside. The issue with this is most houses here in Portugal also don't have central heating. If you do have central heating, you probably rarely turn it on because of the high cost of gas and electric in the country. So for many people, what they end up having to do is just tough it out with a colder home in winter and a hotter one in the summertime than what they're typically used to. Additionally, if you're living in a coastal area of Lisbon where it tends to get pretty humid, you're going to have to most likely deal with the issue of mold. Mold is extremely common here in houses in Portugal, and as you probably know, mold does pose certain health risks. Now, on top of this, landlords in Portugal don't necessarily have the same responsibilities as they do in other countries, such as the United States. So oftentimes what that means is the mold is left up for the tenant to take care of themselves. So that said, before moving to Portugal, prepare yourself for a different standard of living conditions. Again, they're not necessarily better or worse, but they're just different than what you're probably used to in your home country. All right, fifth and finally, and this one might be a little bit controversial, but if you talk to a lot of Portuguese locals or people who have been living in Portugal for a while, particularly Lisbon, they will often tell you that the city has turned into less of a city and more of an amusement park thanks to skyrocketing tourism and digital nomads over the past couple of years. In order to make way for tourists, a lot of the resources for locals and long-term residents like grocery stores, veterinarians, office supply stores, you name it, have started disappearing in traditionally residential neighborhoods. Now, this isn't to direct hate at tourists or digital nomads, but at the same time, we can't deny the impact on livability that those groups of people are having for Portuguese locals. Now, maybe you're thinking, how does this impact me as a person moving to Portugal? Well, You might have enjoyed Portugal or Lisbon as a tourist, but your experience living here might be completely different once you realize how livability standards have changed in the past couple of years. Additionally, and this might be something even more controversial, but something that I've noticed and that has been verified by other people who have been living in Portugal much longer than me, is that places of the country, particularly Lisbon, have become considerably more dirty over the past couple of years. There's a couple of different reasons for why this might be happening. First of all, again, the influx of people coming here for short-term and long-term purposes, as well as political strife. With so many different strikes and shutdowns happening in Portugal, the sanitary services aren't necessarily making the rounds as they may have done in the past. I remember visiting here several years ago, back in 2018, and I considered the city to be quite clean compared to other European cities, but not so much anymore. All right, well, that about wraps up this video. Again, my goal was not to scare you away from Portugal, but just to give you a little bit more of a complete picture of what life is like living here, especially considering the media often tends to overlook a lot of the downsides of moving to Portugal as a foreigner. If you found this video valuable, please like it and subscribe to my channel so I know that you are enjoying the content, and I will continue to create more videos like it. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, if you are interested in moving to Portugal and getting a rental here, then please go ahead and check out my website, casaazulpt.com, for help on securing a rental here in Portugal. Thank you to everyone watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.